Good evening and welcome to tonight's program, Start Today and Retire Tomorrow, with our special guest, George Dillman, Consumer Outreach Specialist at the Pennsylvania Department of Banking and Securities. Welcome, George, and thanks for taking the time to help us be smarter about our retirement plans.
Very good, thank you. So yeah, the presentation is called Start Today and Retire Tomorrow. It's about retirement planning. The presentation, though, isn't as much of a how-to. It's not as much of a how-to save and invest for our future, aka our retirement, as it is a should do and why to. Even though the how-to part is important, in this day and age, a little bit of reading, a little bit of research, and all the information that we have at hand, with modern technology, the how-to part may be the easiest part to do. A lot of times with a lot of people, we'll cover some numbers and statistics, but a lot of times the just doing it part may be the hardest thing to do, because there's always something else that we need our money for, to spend our money on or put our money away for, as opposed to our retirement, as well as the short term, because we're going to be looking at short term needs and funds, as well as long term, and we'll cover that as we go along. So a little bit about me. I'm not an expert, when it comes to saving or investing for short term or long term, aka retirement. But again, as I said, in this day and age, we don't need to be experts. A little bit of reading, a little bit of research, knowing where to go, everything that we have at hand, we don't have to be experts to do it and to do it successfully. I've also been passionate about saving and investing for my retirement ever since I was about the age of 13. When I was 13 years old, I went to a local amusement park in Allentown, Dorney Park, for those that are familiar with Dorney Park in Allentown, Pennsylvania. Not that that matters. Well, while I was at the park, I noticed a gentleman working there that just did not look happy doing what he was doing, working the job that he was working, and he was also struggling with it as well. He was up in age, like 75 or 80 years of age. Not that that matters, but just, he was struggling with the job, the disgusted look on his face. He didn't really want to be there working that job. And even at that age, I looked at this gentleman, I thought, I don't think this guy's working this job because he wants to. I think he's working this job because he has to. And I thought right then and there, that's not going to be me. I'm not going to be 75 or 80 years of age working a job that I have to work because I need the money. Now, do I want to be 75 or 80 years of age working a job that I want to work because I want to continue working? And they talk about health benefits that go along with continuing to work. Keeping the body active, the mind active, getting out, socializing. Oh, absolutely. And that's the difference. You're going out and doing something working a job because you want to, not because you have to. Okay. A little bit about our agency. The Pennsylvania Department of Banking and Securities regulates financial services and works to ensure that consumers and businesses are well informed about the marketplace, kind of like what I'm doing here today. So with that, we're going to start now. Today we're going to talk about retirement planning. National statistics show that most of us are not saving enough for retirement. Many of us aren't saving anything at all. And that's why I stress the doing part may be tougher than the how-to part. We have to remember for those late starters that it's never too late to start. And of course, it's never too early. In fact, the earlier, the better. And we're going to talk more about that as we go along. So look at the numbers. According to the National Institute on Retirement Security, 45% of Americans have nothing saved for retirement. No retirement account assets, nothing, nada, zilcho. The median retirement account for all working age households is only $2,500, and median savings for those nearing retirement is only $14,500. This is our goal for the presentation, or our goals. For those of us who don't have a plan in place, and that plan includes three things. First of all, it includes paying down debt. We need to pay down that debt that can continue to rack up and build. We're going to talk about compound interest, the power of compound interest, and that snowball effect as we save and invest for our retirement. That works the same way with paying compound interest. So we want to pay down that debt that a lot of us have, that we've accumulated. We want to save for our short-term needs, aka an emergency fund. Experts say that we should have at least 6 months worth of expenses saved in an emergency fund for those emergencies that we know are going to come up. At least 6 months worth of expenses. Some experts say as many as 12 months, but at least 6 months worth of expenses. And then to start investing for our long-term needs, our long-term financial needs, or our retirement. So again, for those of us that don't have that plan in place, the goal is to get you to start thinking, if not doing, paying down debt, building that emergency fund, and investing for our long-term future, or long-term retirement. For those that have a plan in place, the goal is to get you to look at that plan. Do I have debt paid down enough? Do I have enough saved? I have an emergency fund. Do I have at least 6 months worth of expenses? And if not, I need to add to that. Am I investing enough for my future? Am I investing the right way for where I'm at in my career right now? So for those that have a plan in place, the goal is to get you to look at that plan, review it, make changes to it, add to it as you need to make sure we reach our destination successfully. For those that have a plan in place and know it's a good plan, hey, George, I've got my debt paid down. I have a nice, healthy emergency fund. In fact, I have 12 months in there, and I'm on course with my retirement. I am investing when I need to invest. I'm investing the right way. Then the goal today is to get you to review it anyway on a regular basis, because we don't know, those curveballs that life throws at us that can take us off track. We want to make sure we stay on track. And if nothing else, to remind you with this presentation why you're doing it, and to keep your eye on the prize and continue to that final goal. And then finally, for everyone, the goal is the final goal is to protect what we save and invest. Because as we save and invest it, there are those out there looking to take it from us, fraudsters, scammers, and we don't want to let them do that. Okay, so normally we have a video to show there's something wrong with the sound. So I'm going to assign this to you as like a homework assignment. There's a website you can go to and should go to check out. It's called When I'm 65. The web address is wi65.org. And the website, it's done in conjunction with our agency, with PBS, and several other organizations. A number of videos on what I'll call saving, investing, and protecting what you save and invest, and for different age groups. Those for geared more towards baby boomers, millennials, Gen Xers, so on and so forth. The video I'd like you to watch is called Investing in Your 30s. And you don't have to be in your 30s to watch it and get something out of it. There's three main points that this video hits on. First of all, we don't need to have a lot to start saving and investing successfully for our future. $20 a paycheck, $30 a paycheck gets us started. And of course, we can add to that as we need to. Secondly, we don't need to be experts on investing to invest successfully. A little bit of reading, a little bit of research, and with modern technology and all of these avenues that we have that we can go to learn, people that can help us with this, it's almost a no-brainer anymore. So we don't need to know a lot. We don't need to be experts in this to do it and to do it successfully. And finally, the sooner we start, the better. They talk about compound interest and the compound interest snowball. You know, as compound interest kicks in, that snowball starts taking off, just like a snowball rolling down the hill. The further it goes, the faster it goes, and the bigger it gets. And I'm going to have a slide later on that kind of shows that part of the video with the compound interest. So the STaRT program was developed to help us make wise decisions to reach our retirement goals. We're going to do this by looking at 3 career phases: early career, mid-career, and late career. But first, how do you picture your retirement? We're going to take a look at some slides at how some people picture their retirement to be. Let's take a look at the slides and see if it matches at least some of what we want to do when we retire. Oop. Uh-oh. And for some reason, my slides are not working. Okay. So we're not going to look at the slides. Oh, okay. Let me see here. Where's my arrow at? Okay. Okay. So I'm just going to read the little blurb that I have here. Few employers offer traditional pensions. Many, 51 to 52%, do not offer any retirement plans at all. We need a plan. Having a plan is crucial to meeting our retirement goals. It's important to know how much we need to retire the way we want to retire, not the way we have to retire. And remember, $1 today won't be worth $1 tomorrow, aka inflation. So we have to keep that in mind. There we go. And we're going to move on to the next slide. So we're talking about these points because look at the statistics. As a whole, we're not saving enough. Many of us aren't saving anything at all. Gen Xers are falling very short. We need to start saving, and the earlier the better. Let's talk about compound interest. This is a quote from Albert Einstein. Compound interest is the 8th wonder of the world. He who understands it earns it. He who doesn't pays it. Think about that for a second. I think we all know what he means by that, right? Would we rather make compound interest or pay it? And unfortunately, there's a lot of us that are paying more compound interest than what we're making. Those plastic cards that get a lot of us into trouble, and some of the interest rates that those cards are charging. So we need to start thinking more about earning compound interest and not paying compound interest. This is a slide on the power of compound interest. In the first scenario, I decide I'm going to save $84 a month over the next 40 years, but I'm not going to put it anywhere where it's going to earn me compound interest. I'm going to put it underneath the mattress like my grandpappy used to do, or I'm going to bury it in jars out in my backyard. After 40 years, I'm going to have a little over 40 with no compound interest. I'm going to have a little over $40,000. Not too bad. Not too bad. Different scenario. I decide I'm going to put it someplace where it's going to earn me compound interest, and it's going to earn me roughly about a 10% in interest. We'll talk more about that 10% on a later slide. With compounding, after about 40 years, I'm going to have close to $500,000. A little bit of a difference there between the two. I talked about this slide earlier as far as the snowball effect with compound interest, time value of money. And in this scenario, and in this case, the snowball is rolling uphill and going faster as opposed to rolling downhill. But in this scenario, we have Susan, who starts investing $5,000 a year over the next 10 years for a total of $50,000. At the age of 25, she starts when she's 25. At the age of 35, she stops investing. She doesn't take any of it out. She just lets compound interest kick in. And she's going to be the center line on the graph, the center dotted line on the graph. We have Bill. Bill waits 10 years. He waits until he's 35, and then he starts investing $5,000 a year over the next 30 years for a total of $150,000 versus Susan's $50,000. And he's going to be the bottom line on the graph. After 30 years, who has more money? Susan has him beat out by about $60,000. Obviously not because she invested more, but because she started earlier and compound interest kicked in earlier and took off earlier. She, at the end of that time, she has him beat out by, again, about $60,000. And you see in all three scenarios, you know, Chris is the smart one. Chris just continued investing, and you see what Chris has at the end of 40 years. But you see in all three examples how after about the first 10 or 15 years, it really starts to take off, that snowball effect. And the whole reason for the slide, and even that video that I'd like everybody to watch, you know, that watch Investing in Your 30s. The whole point is not to say, gee, if you haven't started when you were 25, it's all doom and gloom. No, it's all to enforce or reinforce the fact that the earlier we start, the sooner that kicks in. So, you know, if I didn't start when I was 25, say I started when I was Bill's age at 35, me and Bill are still better off than somebody who waited until they were 40 or 45. And somebody who started when they were 40 is still better off than somebody who waited until they were 45 or 50. And then, of course, you have a number of people out there who have little to nothing saved or invested. So, you know, no matter what you save and invest when you start, you're ahead of the game at some point than a lot of people. So how much do I need to retire? Retirement statistics are not good. Again, as a whole, we're not saving enough. But cutting cost and saving isn't rocket science. And when we say cutting costs, we're talking about cutting down, not cutting out. I do a presentation on budgeting, but creating a spending plan or a budget, and we talk about making sure we're bringing more in than what's going out. Because if we have more going out on a monthly basis, at some point we're going to be in some financial trouble. So two things that we can do to make sure we have more coming in than what's going out. We can either create another stream coming in. Maybe I go out and get a part-time job to have those extra funds that I can, you know, sock away in an emergency fund, build and create and build an emergency fund, invest for my future, or I can cut back on what's going out. And so maybe we do that. Maybe we take a look at what's going out. We cut back on some things. You know, those coffees, those nice cappuccinos and lattes that some people like to have out on a regular basis at Starbucks or their favorite coffee shop. Could we cut back on those to create some additional funds to put away for our short-term needs and our long-term needs? Maybe I like to go out for lunch on a regular basis, or if I'm married, the wife and I like to go out, you know, 3-4 times a week for dinner. Maybe we can look at cutting back on that. Maybe we go out to eat a couple times a month as opposed to a couple times a week, or we brown bag it a little bit more for lunch. We think about things that we can cut back on, you know, not cut out, but cut back on to give us those additional funds that we can put away for, again, our short-term and long-term needs. Let's not deprive ourselves, but find ways of working, you know, to work cutting down into our daily life. And let's think about not buying stuff we really don't have the money for. And with that, I have a quote from Warren Buffett, the Oracle of Omaha. The gentleman only has about $80 billion in his bank account. If you buy things you do not need, soon you will have to sell things you need. And think about that. I think just like with the Albert Einstein quote, I think we know where he's going with that, right? People that just they have to have this. They have to have the bigger, more expensive home. They have to have the matching SUVs in the driveway. They just continue to spend until they get to a point where they actually have to start getting rid of things that they need in order to survive. They get so far into debt. There's a term called keeping up with the Joneses. We're all familiar with that. And the Joneses have a bigger and better house. We have to have a bigger and better house. They have newer, bigger, more expensive vehicles. We have to do that as well. And you're just you continue to follow them and every other Jones, if you will, into further and further into debt. For all we know, the Joneses could be one paycheck away from total financial ruin, but we feel like we have to. We don't have to do that. A good person. The other reason I put up this quote and Warren Buffett's picture, a good person to emulate is Warren Buffett. Warren Buffett still lives in the same house that he bought back in the 1950s. Long before he had $80 billion in his bank account. Now, bigger than any house that I'm ever going to live in. But certainly he could live in something much bigger, much more palatial. He could have homes all over the world if he wants to. He chooses not to do that. He doesn't need to impress anybody. One of his favorite restaurants to go out to is McDonald's. And from what I've heard, he takes coupons with him when he goes there and uses the coupons. So maybe we start, emulating somebody more like Warren Buffett when it comes to, how we save, invest, and spend our money. Let's cut down costs and pay down and eliminate debt. Then let's start saving and investing, and let's start making our money work for us, not against us. Again, remember that Albert Einstein quote. So now let's start our phases. Some of you are in the early phase or early career, some are in mid-career, some are in late career. The first phase in planning for retirement should start the moment you enter the workforce on a permanent or full-time basis. While retirement might not be your primary concern today, it should be a consideration. Financial decisions made today will have a major impact in later stages of retirement planning and how you live in retirement. Time is on your side, but do not wait too long to start your plan. Start today because tomorrow may never come. Again, we put off and put off and put off, and we reach retirement, we have nothing to show for it. So where do you want to be when you retire? How you live, save, and invest today should be in line with how you want to retire. Decide how you want to retire and plan accordingly. We're not all going to need the same amount of money when we retire. Some of us are going to live simpler lives because we choose to do that. Some of us don't. And we want to plan accordingly to how we want to live when we retire or continue living when we reach retirement. And here's the examples that I use. You have one couple, they say they have a nice little house, nice little cottage that they have paid off. They love spending time at home, puttering in the garden, working in the workshop. They love throwing a movie on Netflix and eating homemade popcorn, cooking at home. They get the same vehicle serviced year after year. They're going to have different needs than to the couple that want to continue going on nice vacations, continue going out to nice restaurants to eat, maybe have a bigger and better home in retirement, brand new car every year, every other year. Neither one is better than the other. It's just how we want to live or continue living in our retirement, and we plan accordingly. Start by asking yourself these questions. Where do I want to be financially? Does the job I have provide enough income? Do I know what I'm doing? Do I understand basic investment principles? Do I know where to find a licensed financial professional? Am I taking full advantage of my retirement options? Are my current habits getting me to my goal? A to-do list can be helpful. And I emailed Diane Arnold at the library a copy of this to-do list that comes along with the presentation. You can certainly ask her for a copy of that, or you can reach out to me to get a copy of that to-do list. And it's a really nice, the first couple pages of the to-do list are checkoff boxes, checkoff sections for each career phase, and checkoff boxes for each one, so you can check things off as you go along to make sure you're on par with where you want to be. The last couple pages are websites that you can go to, videos that you can watch on saving, investing, and protecting what you save and invest. Something else we can do is create a SMART plan. What's a SMART plan? That's a plan that is specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and has a time component to it. And it doesn't have to be anything fancy, long and drawn out. It doesn't have to be the next Gettysburg Address. Something as simple as I will save $500,000 in my retirement fund within 40 years. So, oh, and by the way, experts also say that if we set what specific and what they term as exciting goals, much more achievable than what I'll call wishy-washy goals, right? Rather than saying, I'm going to save a lot of money for my retirement, you know, in the next 40 years for my retirement. Well, what's a lot of money? We just had a slide where a lot of money to one couple is different to a lot of money with another couple. So what's a lot of money? We don't have anything specific to key in on. But if you set a specific, and again, what they term exciting goal, like $500,000, much more achievable. So let's take a look at this. Let's make sure it is a SMART goal. $500,000, I would think that is a specific number. I think we could measure that $500,000 as well. Is it attainable and realistic? We'll shelve that for now. We'll come back to that. Does it have a time component to it? It does, 40 years, right? So is it attainable and realistic? Well, according to the compound interest calculator at investor.gov, it is. Very easy to find, very easy to use, by the way. I plugged in the numbers for Ned, and I came up with a little over $500,000 in Ned's retirement fund. Now, did I manipulate these numbers to get the answer that I wanted? Yes, I did. But think about it. This is what we would be doing if we're using, and I highly recommend to use one of these calculators to make sure we are on track. And this is what we would be doing if we were using one of these. There's a number of different calculators out there, by the way. Social Security puts one out as well, or has one that you can use. But this one, I use this because, again, it was very easy to find. It was very easy to use. So yeah, we would be manipulating these numbers as we go along to make sure that we're going to hit our goal. And here's the example I use. I realize I'm using that 10% again, and I realize that I'm not getting 10% on my return. I'm averaging between 7 and 8%. And at that rate, I'm not going to hit my target. But I'm investing $86 a month, and I realize, you know, if I just cut back on those lattes and I have some additional funds I wanted to, I'm going to up what I'm putting into my long-term investments for my retirement. I'm going to up it to this amount, and using the calculator, if I up it to this amount, it's now getting me to my goal. So we are manipulating these numbers as we're using it, as we're going along. So make saving and investing a habit. Start small if you have to, but start. Estimate what you will need in retirement. Ask for help if you need it. It's good to have professional help. Everyone, no matter what your income level, can save and invest money. You just have to get the right information, have a plan, and put that plan into action. And with that, again, not showing the second video, another homework assignment. If you go to YouTube and you search for Mr. Earl Super Saver, you'll find a video on Mr. Earl, or Earl Crawley, gentleman who never made more than $12 an hour in his career. But take a look at his portfolio, and we're going to take a look at those numbers right now, but certainly check out the video as to, you know, just a good view at somebody who, you know, saved what he could and made cutbacks, you know, talking about budgeting, you know, again, super saver, where he could to reach him and his wife's investment goals. So again, Mr. Earl never made more than $12 an hour in his career. He and his wife raised 3 children, and they all attended private school. Now, this comes down to something else I'll cover called contingency plans, having contingency plans in place. In this case, Mr. Earl and his wife didn't want to dip into the retirement account retirement funds to pay for private school, Mr. Earl went out and got part-time jobs to pay for the private school, to come up with those additional funds to pay for private school. At the time of the video, him and his wife had their mortgage paid off. And at the time of the video, they had an investment portfolio worth over $500,000. This again on a job he worked as a parking lot attendant. The video is a little dated. He may be retired by now, but never made more than $12 an hour working as a parking lot attendant. So we can all do this. We can all find ways, in some cases maybe to bring more in or to cut back on what's going out to get us to enable us to reach our goals, our short-term goals, aka emergency fund, our and of course paid down debt, and our long-term goals, aka our retirement funds. Do your homework before investing. Make sure you're getting non-product promotional information, such as what we offer through our website at dobbs.pa.gov. We have a consumer section, and there's some examples of the handouts that we have available. But we have a consumer section where you can get a number of handouts, again, on what I'll refer to as saving, investing, and protecting what you save and invest. And again, all non-product promotional information. We're not trying to push anything or sell anything. Okay, so we're ending phase one, and we're ending phase one with this checklist. Ask if your employer offers a retirement plan. If not, research and choose your own retirement account, and/or look for the right investment advisor to work with. Just make sure if you do, you make sure that person is licensed and legit. And of course, there's other things you can check out. You can reach out to us, and we can point you in the right direction so you can find somebody. If you're looking to work with a financial professional, somebody who is licensed and legit, maybe somebody who's local, somebody who's doing it for a while, so on and so forth. Consider traditional and Roth IRAs as your own retirement account, or maybe in addition to one employer. You're looking to save additional. Consider how other life decisions like having children or owning a home may impact your retirement resources. Make sure you're following money-wise practices. Keep debt paid down, keep an emergency fund, nice healthy emergency fund, and maximize your retirement funds. Phase two, am I on track? We're now in phase two of planning our retirement. Those in phase two or mid-career should have a plan in place. If not, they need to start. Early in our careers and younger, we can take more risks with investments. We have more time to recoup losses and make our money work for us. Further on, however, we want to make sure we're closely aligned with our goals and plans. We want to make sure we are taking fewer risks to ensure we achieve our retirement goals. And with that, I'm going to show you a snapshot of the stock market. This is a snapshot of when the stock market started up to about today. They equate the stock market to a roller coaster. See how it goes up and down, up and down. But from where it started to where it's at today, look at where it's gone over the long term. Over the long term, as you can see, it's gone up. And I think a lot of us are familiar with the term long-term, investing for the long term. This is what we're doing, especially when we're younger. We're investing for the long term. We could take riskier investments such as stocks, and even with stocks, you generally have more conservative stocks and more riskier stocks. So even within stocks, maybe when we're younger, we can go riskier, because the riskier we go, the larger the returns. Now, not good for the short term with those up and down, but over the long term, you see where that stock market is going. Now, no guarantees that tomorrow it's not going to drop off that graph and down to the floor. But historically, we've seen where it's gone. And of course, they continue to put things in place to make sure we don't have that drop. The closest we came, I guess, was the Great Depression in the 1930s. So when we're younger, we can go riskier with, of course, there's this thing called risk tolerance too. You know, if it's going to bother me and I can't sleep at night, if I'm in my 20s and I can't sleep at night because the stock market took a dive and all my stocks are, you know, then maybe I need to go with something more conservative. But if you're okay with taking that risk, and it should pan out as you see the graph, we can go riskier with our investments when we're younger. Now, as we start getting older, and this is where we're looking at the career phases. Where am I at? You know, can I go riskier where I'm at? Should I go more start going more conservative? So as we get closer to where we're looking to retire, we want to start pulling back from the risky and going more conservative with our investments. Because what we don't want to happen is we don't want to get to a point where we're ready to retire, and then all of a sudden the stock market takes a little dive, and now we're starting to take money out of that investment. We're either taking it out at a loss, or we're waiting 3 to 5 years for our investments to bounce back before we start taking funds out. Oh, by the way, one other thing that I want to point out with that 10%, since 1926, large companies in this country have paid on average around a 10% return to their investors. So in theory, if we're investing in all our investments are in large companies in this country, we should be getting about a 10% return, and that's where I got that 10% from. Because I have people ask me about that all the time. Now, in reality, you know, most of us are going to mix it up a little bit, so we're not actually making that 10%. Now, the graph brings us to asset allocation, and it gives us a better visual on how we should be investing, you know, at where we're at in our career. Again, when we're younger, we see the graph on the left-hand side where we're investing more in stocks than we are in bonds or money market funds. Another investment tool, not money market accounts, money market funds, which is another investment tool, and even safer, or as safe or safer than bonds. And you see on the right-hand side, as we're getting closer to retirement, age 60, closer to retirement, we're now going more conservative with our investments, more with bonds and money market funds as opposed to stocks. We're still dabbling in stocks, but we're going more conservative with our investments. So we're asset allocation. And again, we take a look at where we're at in our career, and gee, should I go a little bit more conservative now? I mean, you know, the later part of stage 2 of my career, and so on and so forth. Regularly review your retirement plan. Make sure you are on track with your goals. Remember to account for inflation. Again, $1 today won't be worth $1 tomorrow. Meet with your investment advisor regularly if you choose to have one. Stay in tune with what your retirement savings and investments are doing. Keep debt under control and emergency savings healthy. However, even well thought out plans can be derailed. Have contingency plans in place. For example, a part-time job for those uncertain economic conditions. Mr. Earl wanted to send his kids to private school, didn't want to dip into the retirement account or even the emergency fund, and went out and got part-time jobs to do that. Contingency plans. Use additional income from raises or elimination of debt to add to your retirement savings. You have a husband and wife that they send a check in every month to the mortgage company. They pay their mortgage off. Maybe they may pay their mortgage off early. They're used to sending X number of dollars into the mortgage company. So rather than spending that money now, they decide to continue sending that check. But now they're rather than the mortgage company, they're sending it into a retirement account. They have to beef up that retirement account a little bit more. Changing up a little bit, one way to prepare for retirement is life planning. Make sure your life and end-of-life plans are in order and carried out as you wish. Also, we don't want to factor family history into our retirement plan. If I come from a family where male members have a tendency to die of heart attacks in their 40s and 50s, I shouldn't plan accordingly. I should not, have some type of retirement account thinking that I'm going to die of a heart attack before I reach retirement. Doesn't mean every male member of the family that's going to happen to. Plus, in this day and age with modern medicine, modern technology, the way they're making leaps and bounds with medicine and health, we could probably all plan to live to be 100. What we don't want to do is be 100 years old and broke. So again, plan accordingly. Plan as if we're all going to make it to 100. Phase 3, are we there yet? This is our last phase, or phase 3. If you're within 10 years of retirement, you're in the final stretch. You should be in your peak earning years. Be hyper vigilant about making sure you're making sound financial decisions. Beware of these get-rich-quick schemes that are out there. So-called investment opportunities that promise guaranteed rates of return, high rates of return at little to no risk, usually in a quick turnover period. You know somebody who promised all of that, offered all of that in his so-called investment opportunity? Gentleman by the name of Bernie Madoff, and we know what happened there. Largest Ponzi scheme ever. Many people who invested their entire life savings into this so-called great investment opportunity, and a lot of them are waiting to get any of those funds back. So we have to be careful. We want to stick with what has worked for us, what will continue to work for us. We don't want to get derailed on one of these so-called great investment opportunities. Beware. Be aware that retirees have a huge red target on them when it comes to scammers. We don't want to let them do it. Learn how to identify the signs of fraud to avoid it, and what to do if you are a victim. With less than 10 years until retirement, you want to assess your savings and investments to date. Make sure you are prepared for the retirement that you want, not the retirement that you have to take. Situations could arise that could leave you with insufficient retirement funds, such as medical expenses. Investing additional funds can help these situations. The curveballs life throws at us later in our lives, like forced early retirement, tend to have harsher impacts. Make sure you plan ahead on how to meet those challenges if they arise. Now, if money wasn't an issue, right? Consider working in retirement to make your nest egg go even further. Now, we're not talking like that guy at Dewarney Park that I mentioned. Again, somebody who had to work. You could see it in his face. You could see it in his eyes. He needed that job. He had to work that job no matter how much he hated it. Now we're talking about working something in retirement because we want to. Again, there's some health benefits. They attribute, keeping the body active, the mind active. You put a few extra shekels in our pocket, get to socialize with people. Now we're doing something because we want to do it. And if we do decide to do it, not that we have to, because again, the situation we want to be in, we're doing it because we want to, not because we have to. So if we do decide to do that, we want to plan ahead, to make sure that we're prepared for what we want to do in retirement. And the example I use is, say I want to teach after I retire from my full-time job. I want to teach part-time, but I need to go back and take a few extra courses in order to do that. So I plan ahead, I take those courses, and then when I retire, I'm ready to jump into that next career, into that teaching position that I want to get or do. Anticipate inflation and tax implications. What you don't want to do is outlive your retirement money. Once again, none of us wants to be 100 years old and broke. Learn the warning signs and how to protect yourself from fraud, identity theft, etc. Now more than ever, you need to make sure your investment is safe and sound. So in conclusion, start today and retire tomorrow. Don't put off until tomorrow, because tomorrow may never come. If you've already started, review it, add to it, make changes to it if needed. If you've started and reviewed it and it looks good, stay the course. Continue to review it anyway and stay the course, and continue to review it. Keep it, again, Stay the course, keep your eye on the prize, and remind yourself why you're doing this. And then finally protect it. Because again, there are those out there who are looking to take it from us. We don't want to let them do it. We don't want them to get their hands on our hard-earned money. Because again, what we don't want to be is we don't want to be 75 or 80 years of age, broke, working a job that we have to work because we need the money. We want to be 75 or 80 years of age, working a job because we choose to, not because we have to, because we choose to, doing something because we want to do it, doing it on our terms. Normally at this section, I would take questions.
Well, I have a question. I have a question for you.
You have a question? You're not supposed to have questions, Diane. Is that Diane or is that, wait, I'm mixing.
Diane, yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, Diane. Yeah, Diane.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay. So if you've had to deplete your emergency fund or your savings, or maybe even cash out some of your investments because of the current emergency that's happening right now, what is your advice for recovering those assets when this is all finally over? Is it best to build up your savings again, your emergency savings again, or is it better to get your investments back on track?
That's a good point. And we're not allowed to advise. We're not allowed to advise anybody, but that I think you may be on the right track.
Because, there's three things that are happening right now. There's dipping into the emergency fund or depleting it. There's running up your credit cards, and there's worst case scenario, cashing out some of your retirement that you already have.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. And as we know that there's a number of people that are probably doing that right now, unfortunately.
Yeah.
In our current situation.
So when you're building things back up again, what's the order you should do it in? Pay off the debt first, I guess. And then build the savings and then go back to your investments, or
and that's probably, it's you're right, because and I think that's what we want to look at. Maybe when we want to look at, where we're getting hit the hardest. Several in investing. So I'm not going to, I'm just saying from what I've heard from several, investors, known investors out there, I've heard almost the same thing, where we want to compare, where we're getting the best bang for our buck. Mm-hmm. If I have, and again, if it's not us, we know people who have credit cards with the interest rates are ridiculous on some of these cards, 21%, 28%.
Right.
And if on average, even with my long-term investments, I'm making 7 to 8%, which I think that kind of tells us what we need to do first. Mm-hmm. Yeah. We want to pay down or eliminate that debt first. And then we start, working and building, mm-hmm. And again, that's why, oh God, I think the presentation on it, if you certainly we do this works very well with a presentation I do on spending plans or budgeting.
I think we're scheduled for that too.
Are we scheduled for that? Oh, fantastic. Okay, there we go. Then whoever watches this video needs to watch the next one on spending plans. Yeah, and that's how we eliminate that, or we steer clear of that. And we talk about planning ahead and setting funds aside so we don't put it on that plastic card. Mm-hmm. And I'll tell you what, sometimes we have to blame the ads. It's like these companies out there want us using these plastic cards, and we know why, because of those interest rates.
Sure.
They don't want us paying them off. Use the card. We see the ads all the time, right? Mm-hmm. Now you don't even have to swipe. You just tap the machine now with your card, and hey, I'll get yours too, and I'll get yours too, and put everything on my card. Yeah. So we're paying these high interest rates. They get us thinking that it's not even like cash. We have to get in that mindset that even though it's a credit card and we're not paying it right away, that it's still. We have to still look at it as cash. And I think that's where people get into trouble. Oh, I'll just put it on the card. Yeah, well, eventually you have to pay the piper. Right. And if we continue to as we both know, with people that we know, as we continue to put on those cards, and you can see it. Diane, I mentioned this earlier today, and I was doing the spending plans presentation today several times now. I think they just started showing it again. But I remember back when COVID, the COVID virus first hit, and a lot of people were getting laid off from jobs. And I saw a food bank, one of these free food banks out in California, the cars that were lined up to get food at these food banks. And a lot of those cars looked like pricey vehicles. I think I saw a number of nice, new, expensive SUVs in those lineups.
Yeah. And
you see it all the time. People that you swear some people, they can't spend the money fast enough as they get it. They gotta constantly be spending more than what they're making, and of course they get themselves into trouble. And then something like that happens, an unexpected job loss. I've lost my job. Nobody expected this pandemic, but these things come up. Things will come up. Mm-hmm. And if it's not a pandemic, all of a sudden my company decides to cut back, and me and 30 other people are losing our jobs, and it just came out of left field. We had no idea it was going to happen. And sometimes they don't want us to know what's going to happen because they need us to keep working until they don't need us anymore. We have to be prepared. Again, we have to be prepared for those emergencies that we know are going to come up. And maybe one of the reasons why it's good to have even more than 6 months worth of expenses in there, because whether it's the example I used today wasn't just a job loss. I go to the auto shop. I take my car. I'm setting funds aside with my spending plan, as we'll talk in the spending plans presentation that I'll do. And I'm setting funds aside for a new vehicle. I need to trade the car in, but the car that I now have, until I have that money saved, I need to keep this car running. I take this car into the shop, and all of a sudden I have a $1,500 bill to repair the car that I didn't expect. And if I don't have the money in some type of short-term fund to pay that, where am I going to get it? Now I have to pull money. If I'm putting money aside for that new car, now I got to take the money out of that fund to pay the bill, or put it on the credit card and pay it off over the next couple months with that high interest rate, or dip into So I hope that answered your question.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think we key in on what the as far as where we're going to get the most bang for our buck, so to speak, and if the interest rate on the debt is higher, we probably want to concentrate on that first, and then once we get that paid down, if not paid off, then we start looking at those other things. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right.
Good question.
Well, I don't think there's any more questions. So, yeah. So thanks for helping us out and showing us this presentation and getting us on the right track.
Are you still recording?
I'll stop the recording in a minute.
And I just, with no more questions, let me just a little bit more about our agency. We, for people who do watch this video, we regulate the banking, securities, and investing, the finance industries in Pennsylvania. If anyone ever has a question, a problem, an issue as it relates to that, they can reach out to us. For example, say I have an issue with my local bank that's not getting resolved and I need to have that issue resolved. You can reach out to us. Maybe I am looking for a financial professional to work with. I'm looking for somebody who's not only licensed and legit, but somebody who's local to me, somebody who's been doing it for a while. They don't have any complaints against them. That's a good person. We can point somebody in the right direction to find somebody to find somebody to work with, if that's what they're looking to do. Maybe somebody down the road has this so-called great investment opportunity that I think is a scam, and I want to report it. You report that to us. Mm-hmm. And there's a number of other things too. Our toll-free number is here, real easy to remember. I tell people, I say this jokingly all the time. It's why I love working for this agency. Real easy to remember our toll-free number, which is 800 PA Banks, or 800-722-2657, or you can certainly reach us through our web address at dobbs.pa.gov. But if you phone, we have representatives available Monday through Friday during normal business hours, 8 to 5, that will answer the phone. If you call during those days and times, you should get a live voice answering the phone. If you don't get a live voice answering the phone, you leave a message and somebody should get back to you within 24 business hours. I stress business hours because if you call it, say I call it 6 o'clock on a Friday evening, I shouldn't expect to get a call back until sometime after 8 o'clock Monday morning. But within 24 business hours, somebody should get back to you to assist you. And if it's not our question to answer, complaint to take, or problem to solve, we'll make sure to point you in the right direction.
All right.
And with that, we can end the recording.
Thank you again. I appreciate you coming and giving us this presentation.